So today we're very fortunate to have two people that are well known in Pinellas County, Leon and Nancy Hart. They're a special couple because they have lived here such a long time and have family heritage here, so it is my pleasure to welcome Leon and Nancy. Thank you for being here at the Hartley House, the Palm Harbor Museum, to tell a story about your lives. You know, we're doing these personal life histories just to find out about what life was like in an earlier time, about your siblings and how you live. So it's really a very personal story. So we want to hear what your story is. So let me start with you, Leon. Tell me about your parents.
They came from Branford, Florida. My mother did. My dad. And then my mother, she was from Trenton, Florida.
Mm-hmm. And they met here or they met somewhere else?
They met up there. And then they moved here in the early 20s to Dunedin area. Mm-hmm. And then they, in 35 or 36, then we moved to Ozona.
I see. Your whole family did?
Right.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me about your siblings. Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I had 3 brothers, Mac, Hillman, and Reuben.
Mm-hmm. All of whom are a good bit older than you and are gone now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Sorry to say, because the Hart brothers, as I said to you earlier today, when I saw you, it was just like seeing Mac again, because you all looked a lot alike, didn't you?
Well, we all kind of...
cut out of the same cloth.
Right.
What year were you born, Mac? I'm sorry.
I was
Leon.
born in 1935.
1935.
Mm-hmm.
What are your earliest memories in Dunedin and, in your case, I guess it was Ozona mostly, wasn't it?
Ozona is really where I was more or less, because my other brothers, they were all in Dunedin in that area, but then in 35 is whenever I was in Ozona. I just remember mostly as a teenager growing up there, and it was really, it was like a little fishing community in that area, and we were right on the water, close to the water.
Oh.
So we were always playing in the water, around the water. And my parents, they loved to fish, especially my mother and my grandmother. And
was that food on the table sometimes?
There was a lot of food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a large dock that ran right across in front of our house, and they were just about always out on the dock fishing or doing some type of activity out there. So.
And you kind of jumped to your teen years, but tell me about your early childhood. When you were a kid, where'd you go to school, for example?
I went to Ozona School.
Ozona Elementary.
Elementary, and then went to Palm Harbor.
And is that the middle school that is now the elementary school that's closed, or do you remember where it is, which is about on 15th Street?
It was the little brick building in Ozona.
Oh, in Ozona. Oh, okay.
Well, that was the one in yeah.
Right.
But
it's on Pennsylvania.
Yes. Yeah, that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you graduate from high school?
No, I went through the 10th grade.
Did you ever serve in the service?
No, I didn't. I was right on the borderline. And I had 2 brothers, that Mac and
you were a little bit too young for the service
Right.
of the Second World War.
Right. I had 2 brothers that went, Mac and Norman, both. They were in the service. And me and Reuben, we didn't either one go. So.
Let's go back to the fishing in Ozona. What kind of fish did you catch in those days? Do you recall?
Well, you caught a lot of trout and bluefish and mackerel, and mostly mullet. It was the biggest thing back in those days.
So were you pretty good with a mullet net?
Yes, well, actually, we usually used gill nets back in those days.
I see.
And as a younger...
So what's the difference between what we call a mullet net that you gather up in your teeth and a gill net?
Well, the gill net is the one you run around them. You'll make a circle around the fish. With a cast net is what you're talking about. You throw it over the top of them. Right. But back in the older days, we always use the gill nets. In other words, you would go a circle, make a round circle around the fish, and then wait for them to hit the net, and then you would pick them up and out of the nets.
Well, took some talent, I guess.
It took a lot of talent. Plus a lot of extra work, too, because you're always getting holes in your nets and always had to maintain them.
Wow. Do you remember, Nancy, I'll get to you in a minute, I'm not ignoring
No,
you, but,
that's
but
fine.
we're kind of down a track here that I want
Right.
to talk about with Leon. So do you remember anything about the things you did for play or things that you did that you enjoyed as a kid?
Oh, actually, we done a lot of building castles and stuff because in our area there was a lot of the mangrove trees and stuff like that back then, and we more or less played out in the woods and along the water because we were right on the water, and there's always the mangrove trees and stuff like that, and the palmettos, and we played a lot in underneath the palmettos, and you always worry about people getting bit. But back then, we never worried about snakes or anything like that.
You know, it's interesting that you're telling this story because I have a grandson that lives in Ozona and he's doing pretty much the same things that you did.
Right.
So you'll be glad to know that. He
That's
likes
good.
to scamper around the, you know, the seawalls and the water's
Seawalls.
edge and the
Right.
and the mangroves and all of that kind of thing. And he's just a water rat. They spend all
Right.
day out in the water.
Right. Well, back then, that's where most of your things were, in your mangroves and stuff like that, because it was always, you know, around the water, so you always had your mangroves.
Right.
There was no Ozona shores then,
No.
so I mean it was all mangoes and swampy and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So they,
Nancy, tell me a little bit about your background. Your parents came from.
my we came from Michigan in 1954, and I finished high school at Clearwater High School my last year, and I have 11 brothers and sisters.
Wow. That's
I
impressive.
have 4 brothers and 7 sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So
Are they all living?
no, I have 3 brothers that have passed and 1 sister that has passed.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm the oldest girl. I had 2 brothers older than I, and they're both passed. And I'm the oldest girl.
So you're the matriarch of the family, and
I diapered a lot of babies and fed a lot of babies.
I'm sure you did.
So,
I'm sure you did.
but we lived in Clearwater. And I met Leon when I came here. My brother had come here after his graduation. My aunt and uncle lived on Palm Harbor. They had
And
come.
what was their name?
Howard,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And they were in Palm Harbor, and he came down to visit them after he got out of high school. And he came home and he said, "Oh, Dad, you need to go to Florida. It's beautiful. It's so much cheaper to live there. All the kids, you know, no snow clothes, no boots, no, you know, so much cheaper." So my dad came down for a visit, and my mom liked it. And so they came home, and my aunt and them had moved to Clearwater, and my aunt and uncle rented them a house and got them all this furniture. I guess they went to like Goodwill and different places and got them stuff for the house. And
Begged, borrowed, and stole the
yeah,
furniture.
and they had the house furnished when we got there because we'd
Wow.
sold everything when we left.
Oh, wow.
So
So how many children came down at that time? I mean, were there all 11 of you born? by
all
that time?
11 of us came. We came. My mother and father came first, and they came with another couple that also moved here, friends of theirs. And some of the children came with mom and dad, and the other couple rode down. And then they stayed, and then when they came back, the rest of us came. And my brother drove, and my dad drove, and
Oh, my.
2 brothers drove and 1 father. So we had 3
Do you
cars.
remember what the car was like that you rode in?
Well, I remember the one I rode in. What was that little coupe Bob had, that little green coupe? I don't even know what it was.
49 Ford Coupe.
Yep. And my dad drove a Dodge. I can't remember what year it was. It was fairly new, so it was probably a 54 Dodge. But
So what did your dad and mother do when they got down here? Did your mother work, or she?
no, my
work,
mother
or-
never. She. I can remember when I was very small. My mom worked during the war in some kind of a plant where they did things for airplanes. I don't remember.
A lot of women worked
Yeah,
during the war. That's
yeah.
right.
But then she never worked after that. I mean, she had so many children. She used to take in laundry, like for bachelors. She would take in their laundry and iron their shirts and things like that. But she never worked. Even when we came here, she did that. No. But my dad always worked in a foundry or something. And my dad drove race cars some, so he liked to do that. And
Oh, so that was an avocation.
yes,
Uh-huh.
but he usually drove for someone else. But anyway, he used to, he was a mechanic mostly. Yeah, he was, that's the work he did.
And that's what he did in the Clearwater area.
Yes, yeah, he mechanic. And then he would shrimp some with Leon. When Leon was shrimping, he'd come and shrimp with him some.
So how did you and Leon meet?
Well, through my brother. When my brother was here, he became friends with Leon. My brother was here for about a year, and he became friends because he was living in Palm Harbor with my aunt. And they became friends, so when we came, he introduced me to Leon, so that was where we met. So,
is that your story too, Leon?
That's my story. We used to shrimp together, me and her brother. We each had different boats, but we were shrimpers, and that's how we become friends.
I see.
And then we run around together and everything. So.
And what did he say to you? Did I have a nice girl that I want you to meet, or?
Well, actually, he went up north. He just said he was going to go on vacation. And then whenever he came back with all of his family. So that's really was about the extent of it. And then after that, I met her, my wife, there. And then after about a year, we got married.
So who asked who? Did he ask you, Nancy, or
he
kind of
he didn't.
assumed, or?
He just kept coming to the house.
Couldn't get rid of him.
I remember I didn't want to come because I was a senior in high school, and I said I don't want to go to Florida, and I had a boyfriend there, you know. So when we came, the whole time coming down, my brother kept saying, "Oh, I know all these guys. You'll be fine. You know, I'll introduce you." You know. So anyway.
And it worked out.
And it worked out. He
Indeed.
just kept coming to the house of my brother. So
Yes.
all
so
worked
you
well.
graduated from Clearwater High School in what year?
In 1955, and I was the first graduating class from that school, the new
from
school.
the one on Gulf to Bay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
and that was like out in the country, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yeah. There was
a lot
nothing.
of criticism that they built that so far out of town.
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
that funny.
Yep, and it was first
see
class.
it.
I didn't know a lot of people because
Sure. of
I was
course.
new, you know,
Right,
and
right.
so, but
Well, now you know a lot of people.
I do, I
sure.
do, I do.
So, tell me a little bit about your early memories of this area, Nancy. I mean, I know you didn't come down here till you were a teenager, or
Right.
a teenager, but you must have had some impressions when you came into town. I mean, I think of, you know, like Highland Avenue in Clearwater was pretty far east for Clearwater.
Well, the one thing that just really stuck out in my mind was Edgewater Drive. When we drove Edgewater Drive in Dunedin, it was
Yes.
just so beautiful.
Driving up from Clearwater.
Yeah, because
to
we
Dunedin.
lived at Sunset Point,
I
so
see.
that's where we lived when I
You
first
lived in
came.
a magic place then, because
Yes.
you were so close to the
Yeah,
water.
yeah. So it was just beautiful. When you come from the north, you don't see all the palm trees and the water, but it was gorgeous.
It's interesting you say that, because that's one of my first memories when I drove into Clearwater for the
Yes.
first time. We had family that lived in Clearwater, and we drove down through, which we couldn't even pronounce it correctly. We called it Dunedin, as many people did.
Dunedin.
And we learned quickly that it was Dunedin, but I know that feeling of
Yes.
just such a beautiful vista there.
It was.
And beautiful landscaping and lovely homes along the way there.
It was beautiful.
So you two got married in what year?
1955.
1955.
In the summer,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yep. Soon
right
after I
after
was out of school.
graduation.
Yep.
Right. And you got married where?
At Ozona Baptist Church. We
Still there.
it's still
a lovely
there.
little church.
Our daughter married there, and two of our granddaughters, and I have a brother that married there.
Oh,
So
a real family affair.
yes, it's a beautiful
Is
church.
that where you went to church when you went to
Yes,
church?
we're
Oh,
members of
you're
Ozona
members.
Baptist. We are.
Right.
Yep.
And so tell me a little bit about your children then. Where did they come into your lives?
Well, we have two children. We have a daughter, Debbie, and we have a son, David. And Debbie was born in 1956, and David was born in 1959. And Debbie lives in, it's amazing, she lives in Trenton, Florida, where Leon's mother came from.
Isn't that interesting?
And David lives in Arapika. And
So you've got them reasonable. I don't know exactly where Trenton is. Is that in North Florida?
near Chiefland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Right,
Chiefland and Bell, right in
Right.
that area.
So they're not so far away from you.
No, actually, Debbie's just an hour north and David's an hour south, so we just kind of are in
We're
between.
right in the middle.
Yep,
Right,
yep,
right.
yep. So,
Tell me a little bit about your grandchildren then. I think they have children too.
oh
don't
my,
they?
yes, we have, how many? I wrote it down. Let's see, we have 6, I have to count them again. 6, how many grandchildren? Let's see, I wrote it there.
Not the number, but
gee.
You've got quite a few anyway.
Well, let's
So
see, we
Debbie
got,
has-
Debbie has 4, and
And David
David
has-
has 4. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's 10.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I can see why you have to think about and count them out, right?
Yeah, and great grands we have. Oh my.
Oh, you've got great grands.
Oh
too.
yes.
Oh my
and
goodness.
now we got. Let's see. Oh my. Let's see. I can't remember. How many? 10. I knew it. Now grandchildren we have 8 and 10 great grands. Right? You got it mixed up. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That's it.
And one of your grandchildren, Chris, went to forestry school, didn't he?
He did.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about him.
When Chris was in, I think it was 2nd grade, I believe, and he was at Ozona School. He received the Doorway, is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Doorway, yeah,
Scholarships.
scholarship from Myrtle Betts. Found it from her book that
The
they
proceeds
sold.
from her book. Uh-huh.
Mhm. And so he went to forestry school, and but he is farming right now. He's a farmer up in Trenton.
Well,
he
he
farms
can
up
probably
there.
apply a lot of his forestry
He
skills.
can, he
for
can.
farming.
Yep, he's enjoying it very much.
Right.
And Paul, his brother, is works at the prison. He's a guard at the prison there in Trenton. Mm-hmm. So,
Tell me about your work life. Let's start with you, Leon, because I know you had a work life too, Nancy. But tell me what you did for a living. How did you, bring in the bacon?
Originally, let's see. I used to work for Brandenburg Feed Company at one time. I worked in the fish where they raised the chickens in the hatchery end of it. And I can always remember where we'd have to take all the little chickens out, and then they would have people that come in, and then they would sex them out to where you would have all your hens, and that was I worked there for approximately 2 years.
Where was that, Leon? I don't know.
It was
where
right
that
in Dunedin,
Oh.
Brandenburg.
Brandenburg? Uh-huh.
Feed store.
Feed store. Okay.
And then I became a shrimper after that. And then
And you had a boat to
I
do
had,
that,
my own,
of
I
course.
had my own shrimp boat, and I've
Uh-huh.
done that for approximately, I don't know, probably
about 12 years.
about 12 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long career in the fishing
It's
business
really
and the shrimping business.
And then then after that, I went to work for my brother, Mac. He was he got his license, and he became a contractor with Hart Electric.
Right.
And then I worked for him approximately 12 years. And then after he kind of sold his company to Anaco Electric, and then the Huddy brothers, they went into visit, Bill and Carl Huddy,
Right.
Huddy Electric. And then I worked for them approximately 8 years. And then I also worked for Olin Dixon in Palm Harbor.
Sure.
And then I worked for him probably about 6 years, or